House. I'm interrupting my Costa Rica vacation to bring you some important updates about what's going on in the banking system. I feel it's very important that you know what's happening in real time, so that if you have any exposure, any excessive exposure to the banking industry, hopefully you'll have a chance to do something about it before it's too late. Okay, so this is a warning, and obviously we're going to have some potential solutions for you. So before I get to the update and what's new, what's happening, let me just review some of the key points that we've talked about in previous videos in case you've missed those, or just to summarize. Okay, number one, we remember back in 2008 that the banks were in a critical liquidity crisis. Credit was ready to dry up and just completely stop the entire economy. It was at a crisis level, and what happened? The banks, or the governments, came in to bail them out. It was a bailout by the government, and basically it paid the chief banking executives billions of dollars to line their pockets, and as a secondary benefit, helped bring the bank back to a liquid status, which was an improvement over the dilapidated state that these same executives who have enriched themselves created in the first place, with poor decision making and bad wagering. Okay, so those were the bailouts. Now that's not going to happen anymore. The laws have changed. You've heard of bail-ins, right? If you're not familiar with that term, a bail-in is where the bank will give a haircut to all of its customers. In other words, they will take a percentage of the deposits of each and every customer to make themselves liquid again, to pay for their own mistakes. So you pay for the banker's mistakes. All right? That's basically thievery. Now, other laws have come to the fore, which are quite interesting, which basically state that once you give a deposit to your bank, you are no longer owner of that money. You do not claim ownership to the funds you've deposited with the bank, at least in the United States, and I know certain other European countries, as well as others around the world. Well, if you're not the owner of the deposits you put in the bank, who is? Well, the bank. You now fall down the ladder of priority to the level of an unsecured creditor. So in other words, if the bank goes into receivership and bankruptcy, you stand in line as an unsecured creditor along with all of the other contractors and ad agencies and window cleaners and everybody else who has a contract that hasn't been paid. That's essentially where you stand as a depositor. You don't own that money in the bank anymore. All right? So understand that. New laws. That with the bank bail-ins is more than enough to give people cause for concern and to give pause to some serious thinking about what can be done. All right? Now, having said that, we've just not too long ago put out an alert talking about how some banks and credit unions are not allowing their customers to send wire transfers of significant amounts. I talked with an Australian friend of mine in the construction business. He said he tried to send a simple wire for $5,000. That's not a large amount, okay? That's very small, especially in the construction business. And the bank just gave him hell, asking for details and papers and contracts and lists of suppliers and architectural drawings, and the list just went on and on and on, digging into every nook and cranny of his business in order to give him permission to send $5,000. And that's the state of banking in many banks around the world. We've experienced that ourselves. I just closed a corporate bank account with a bank that took the same attitude. They wanted to ask a long list of questions about this transfer. Who's it going to? What's their web page? What's their business? Why do you need to send it? Do you have an invoice? All these crazy things. As though they're my babysitter, whom I have to get permission from to use my own money. These are things going on now every day. All right, it's a serious issue. You know, it's much like, this is what they call conservation efforts. You remember the old series, the Beverly Hillbillies, right? And you remember when whenever Jed wanted to invest in a new property or anything for that matter, Mr. Drysdale would be there at his doorstep saying, no, Jed, that's risky. You can't do that. If you did that, you could risk, losing everything, and this is not a reputable person to be dealing with, and no, don't send that money, don't make that purchase, don't let your money leave the bank, is what he's saying. They want to keep the money in the bank. And we've had several accounts of that happening just in recent days. Conservation efforts, where one attempts to move their funds and the bank comes up with all kinds of excuses why not. And so in the end, if you've got them into a corner, what they do is they just claim, oh, we suspect there could be fraudulent activity, when of course there's no such thing whatsoever. We suspect it could be fraudulent, so for security we're going to have to lock this down. Okay, these are going on every day. So we need to know about that, be aware of it, and minimize your exposure to this kind of risk. All right, I'm telling you this now. Hopefully you can take some proactive action and protect yourself. All right, one reason for this is that I just saw an article here recently by The Telegraph in the UK talking about how the central banks, primarily the Fed, are looking to suck out $1.7 trillion out of the economy in a quantitative easing reversal. All right, if you're not familiar with quantitative easing, that's what prompted the stock market to go so high in recent years. One of the primary reasons. Quantitative easing is basically another way of saying the Fed is flooding the market with cheap, easy money and credit. All right, and with easy money, what do people do? They buy stocks. Stock prices go up, create a huge bubble. Credit is loose and easy. People go into debt. All right, what happens when that quantitative easing or that easy money comes out of the market? Credit dries up. Prices drop. Interest and profit revenues dry up. Now all of a sudden people can't maintain that debt that they've gotten themselves into. And guess what? The Fed comes in and mops it all up in foreclosures. That's what the bankers do. Get you to buy all kinds of stuff based in debt, pull the rug out from underneath you. You can't pay for it anymore. Guess what? Now it's theirs. It's a nice addition to the balance sheet. That's how the economy works, folks. Okay, so we've got that going on. I've just had an experience with one of the banks that I deal with internationally where they have lost their correspondent banking relationship. All right, all banks that deal in dollars have a correspondent bank, typically in New York, as the primary place for these correspondent banks who deal with dollars. So any foreign entity, foreign bank, dealing in dollars to send a US dollar transfer in or out of the country will use that correspondent bank. Without the correspondent bank, guess what? They cannot do wire transfers in US dollars. So they're pretty dependent on their correspondent banking relationship. All right, so this bank lost its correspondent banking relationship, told all of its clients, oh, don't worry, we'll have a new one within 4 to 6 weeks. We'll have, and of course, during this time without the correspondent bank, none of your clients could do wire transfers. Their money was stuck. Right? So within 4 to 6 weeks, They say, okay, we now have wiring instructions we can give you. Now, upon inspection of those wire instructions, it was obvious that there was no correspondent bank involved. It was a corporate account in the name of the bank who was the ultimate beneficiary without a corresponding bank and without any FFC for further credit to XYZ account at this address with this account number. So in other words, what they were doing is they're telling their clients, oh, just send money to us in our corporate account and we'll credit your account. Wait a minute. If there is no ultimate beneficiary listed on that wire, i.e. you, if you're the receiver, your company, without a name, address, and account number, again, people are just sending money to the corporate account of the bank. And you have to trust them to give you credit. There's no audit trail. There's plausible deniability that when that wire gets sent for any amount, large or small, it could be said, the possibility exists, not that it would, but you're opening yourself wide open to them saying, well, you know, this was never credited to your account. There was no identifying information. Now, there's some shaving that could go on there on the details, but you get the picture. All right? Here's a bank pretending to be a bank without a correspondent banking relationship, and they're just acting as a private corporation, having their clients send money to their corporate account. It's frickin' ridiculous. And I'll name the bank. It's K Bank in Belize. Stay away from them. It's a rinky-dink operation from the get-go. And I won't go into all the details. Just take that for what it is. Okay? That's been going on. Now, another recent experience. I know from direct experience with myself and close associates that the feds are now putting pressure on the banks, the U.S. domestic banks, to purge themselves of politically incorrect businesses. You know what's going on social media, right? Twitter, Facebook, the whole censorship routine, you know all about that. Now it's the same thing is going on in the banking industry. Your business could be 100% legal. You could be in business to help people solve problems, doing things on the up and up, operating in complete honesty and transparency, but if your business is perceived as being, shall we say, anti-social in terms of the globalist agenda, your account could be shut down. I saw it happen just last week. The banker made an off-the-record comment saying, yes, I know your account and your business is good and clean and legal and everything is fine, but he said, and listen to this, they are forcing us to close it. They, we know who they is. The regulators. And who do the regulators get their marching orders from? The Fed, the central banks, the money powers. All right, so the purge is on. So take a hard look at your business and your activity and consider the risk. Just consider the risk. So with that in mind, I want to remind you that this is exactly what we have foreseen years ago, we being the Lighthouse Law Club and Monaco Management Group, and have been working diligently to put together a workable alternative to traditional banking. All right, it's not a complete replacement, but it is a working alternative. We're working very hard to create opportunities outside of the corral, if you understand my drift. We're working hard to create opportunities that are exclusive of the US dollar. We're working hard to create opportunities in complete privacy, working through known, proven, and trusted fiduciaries. And we've got a whole series of videos on this subject. I'm not going to go into great detail now. There's plenty of detail already on the YouTube webpage and vimeo.com/Mark Emery. I encourage you to look at those videos in the financial privacy playlist. And I'll be creating a new video to really summarize everything in detail in a short summary for easy digestion of some of the more pertinent facts involved. Okay? So take this warning to heart. Evaluate your position as it relates to the banks and banking, whether it's U.S. banking or anywhere in the world for that matter. If you've been paying any attention at all to the financial news, economic news, political news, anything related to the currency reset, the coming collapse of the dollar, economic collapse, the unsurmountable debt load that the entire world is under, you understand quite clearly that a collapse is coming. And by virtue of the examples I've given you in this video, we can see it's already happening. The Tower of Babel is crumbling. And it's only a matter of time before the whole thing just implodes and falls to the ground. And so the only question is, where will you be when that happens? I'm trying to give you a little forewarning. Give it some thought. Do some homework. Look at the videos we have in the Financial Privacy playlist, and look for the next video that I'll be bringing out on this subject to give you a real clear idea of the alternative that exists that we've been working so hard on these last several years. All right? Great. Thanks for your time and attention. I hope this helps you do some strategic planning and preparation so that you can live a happy, healthy, and prosperous life in the years ahead. All right, take care. God bless.